Here we go. All right, so I have the recording turned on. We just have about less than a minute to go before the appointed 12:30. Did I just get a confirmation in the room that everybody could hear and see? Okay. Excellent. Thumbs up from there. And I want to start off with huge thanks to our executive team. I am unable to come in person today, and I was actually worried that we weren't going to be able to have the hybrid meeting and only be able to do it virtual, but we have Louise stepped up to manage the audio visual in the room and all of the connections, and Lindsay's there helping with that too. And so I appreciate all of their work in getting prepped for this and ready to go. So that's wonderful. Thanks so much for being able to step in and make this happen for us. I really appreciate it. There's a couple of things in the Guild business. We do have a couple of changes in our, or one more change in our executive program. Linda Carter, who has been managing our community outreach program for us, and has been, she did a wonderful job of getting us all lined up to work with the London Cross-Cultural Learners Center, and our members have fully embraced that with blocks and quilt donations. And I'm so happy to have discovered this service that's in our community, and the big difference that we can do as a guild to support them. Linda is finding she's taking a little bit of a different path. She has enjoyed the guild, but she is stepping down at the end of the year. So we are looking for volunteers to look at the taking on some of the community outreach organization. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and we will get working on that. Jan has a couple of comments about program.
Yes. Okay, so in September, we have Tara Evans from Manitoba, who is doing a talk at our regular guild meeting and then doing a workshop. So it's open now, right, Linda, or is it tomorrow? Tomorrow it's open to non-members. So we're encouraging everybody to first of all, sign up for free, of course, because you're members, for the lecture, and sign up for the workshop. It is a fun, relatively simple workshop that I think you'll really enjoy. It's a chance to have a good chance to try out your curve piecing, because it is definitely a nice big circle or part of a circle. And we picked this one, the executive last fall, picked this one because we thought it was very welcoming for people who are relatively new to quilting. You don't need to have a huge amount of experience. You're going to get a lot out of it, and you'll really learn curve piecing this way. So it's a great workshop, and we were able to keep it for members at an amazing price. I'm trying to remember, but I think it's $25. Somebody could correct me if that's wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's right. So this is an amazing price. I mean, you're not going to find a workshop for $25 almost anywhere. You're going to end up with a wall hanging, which is a nice size, and it sort of represents, in a very minimalist way, a rising sun or a setting sun, depending on what colors you choose. They basically look the same. So it's a lovely one. It's in the middle of September, 3rd weekend, I believe, maybe the 4th weekend in September, Saturday again. So get your oar in the water quickly and get in and sign it up. And secondly, tell your friends, anybody outside the guild that you think would enjoy doing it with you. It's going to be open tomorrow, so non-members can participate. and it's wide open. Okay, so the second one I have to talk about is for November. Sherry Noel is a long-time established quilt designer, pattern designer. She's had quilts in just about any quilt magazine I can think of. I've seen them all over the place, including Quilt Moderne, the one out of Europe. She is not, in fact, living in Europe. She's an American. I think she was somewhere in New England, I think it's Massachusetts, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, but like she's prolific and she's had a lot of patterns out there. So she's come up with the workshop that we picked had a very Christmassy theme, which I thought seemed kind of appropriate for November. So thinking to go online on our website, check out the picture for Sherry Noel. It's a gnome. Gnomes are hugely popular these days. If you don't want to make it for yourself, make it for a friend. I think I've already found somebody who wants it from me. So it's a gnome ornament, actually, freestanding ornament or couch corner ornament or whatever. It's a good size. It's about the size of a pillow, but it's freestanding. It's not a pillow, although you could throw it in the corner of a chair like a pillow, but it's more a structure, loosely a triangular structure that really looks very gnome-like. And there is a kit that goes with it that you can order, get it. So if you look at it and think, well, I can't find those supplies, including the gnome's beard, no problem. She creates these little kits and the shipping is quite reasonable. I've already looked into it. And so it's all there. You'll get your gnome for Christmas, and the workshop, you'll probably have it almost entirely done during that day in November. You'll get your gnome done, and then your only decision will be who gets to keep the gnome. So both of them, both lectures and both workshops will be open for registration for non-members tomorrow. Once again, we count on our members to promote our workshops and lectures, because every guest who comes and pays a little fee to come and participate with us contributes to program for next year. So self-promotion is a great thing. Do it. Then we'll have more money to spend on program next year.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jan. And I know Lindsay does a terrific job of promoting the workshops and lectures online, but if you could share that on your social media as well, and promote it in person. Each one of those is an opportunity for maybe someone in the community or one of your friends to get hooked on this joy that we experience together called quilting, and hopefully bring additional both funds for program next year, as Jan says, and members to the Guild. So thanks very much, Jan. All right, next item I have up is the block of the month. And Alicia is doing our block of the month on Peridot, one of my favorite gems.
If you stand in front of the wicker basket, standing in front of the wicker basket.
Yeah, just make sure.
And here, Linda, can you spotlight her?
Spotlighted.
Perfect. Okay, there we go. All right, one step. Well, we need to. We won't make you squat. We can still go. It's a little fussy.
Yeah,
I think she'll have to stand on it. No, it's okay. I got it. Good. Yeah, no, when it works, we love it. When it okay,
Excellent.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Alicia.
Okay, hopefully you can pull everybody. I'm gonna take this off. So we had Peridot, which is the first one for August. Okay, and so
Alicia, could you use your teacher voice to project?
I'm
And Alicia, you're in that screen there.
I'm there.
So
But I'm okay.
yeah, just so you know, just so if you see, no, just so if you see where you are, then everyone else can see you. There you go.
It's a lovely shape. And the green comes from the iron. It's the iron content that's in the surrounding stones or the rock basically. So it is one of the few that is green, other than apple, which most of us are also. So I went pretty easy with the block. I decided to make an elongated chevron shape. I'm using half rectangle triangles. So instead of doing half square triangles, you sort of make it, stretch it out and make it a half rectangle triangle. And then I sort of, you can make it simple or go complicated. I had some scrappy greens, so I just sort of stitched them together as well to kind of give a bit of variation on it instead of just doing something. So essentially what you'll do is you'll cut 2 rectangles. These are 5 by 10. Okay, so if you have a layer cake, this is the next. So you'll cut them in half, and then half square triangles, you know that you sort of like line up square with another, but for the rectangle, you're going to offset it like so. And the instructions are all there. My block turned out like this. Okay. So I went with the gray and the green. You can see the color. And so if you have scraps, it just sort of a little to it. This one is nicely trimmed because you know, I love trimming up things. This one is not so like nicely trimmed, but you still get that shape. So depending on how meticulous you wish to be. And there's all sorts of, there's a few links on the instructions for different ways for squaring up your block as well. So, I really like working with sort of adding that scrappy touch. So if any of you need some green, I've got some green at the back. So so it will, if it's trimmed at 16 by 16. Yeah. So again, there's instructions on how to do trimming of a half rectangle triangle. There's different tips. There's by the ruler. There's the, I went with the, I made a template out of a basic piece of paper to the final square size that I wanted. Final half rectangle triangle that I wanted. And I squared that up on my ruler. So I just kind of taped it to my ruler and put my ruler down and then cut and cut. If that makes sense to some of us. The video is very helpful if you're a visual learner rather than okay. Sharp block. It is. I really it comes together fairly quickly. Something I didn't really anticipate was when you are doing, if all of your scraps are stripes, there's a little more give to it. So you might be cutting off a little bit more solid than you think, but it's good, it'll work out. It'll be fine. And then when you are making them and trimming the half rectangle triangles, you do have to line them up and cut them in pairs. So when there's a forward to back side and a backward to forward side so that they show up this way. So these two here were cut at the same time. So they're going to produce the same direction, half rectangle triangle, if that makes sense. So these two. Whereas if you wanted, say, to put 2 scrappy side by side, you'd have to cut another set going the opposite way for the forms. So I was lazy, so but I thought it worked out really well with the pop of color and then the solids. So keeping in mind, you know, the lights, the darks, the mediums. But thanks so much, everyone. Thank you.
Alicia? And that's a real treat for you. Our member Tracy Hillman happened to be in Vancouver when Quilt Canada was on, and so she went and she's brought us back a taste of Quilt Canada. So Tracy's going to share a document.
We can just do door prizes.
Yeah, good idea.
Oh, right beside you.
Are you going to do a couple of door prizes just before Tracy gets started?
296. I'm passing that four. And your 5 bucks. Having a little tiny mini. A little bit of fun. 291. Oh, that's me, I think. There you go. Yeah. Looks like. You want that? You know what? I need you. 285. We're good.
Good to go?
We're good? Can you hear me, Linda? Can everybody
I
hear me?
can. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because I'm muted, but should I?
Okay. No, it's.
That's
picking up
fine?
From here.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So the date's wrong, actually. That's the day I came home. It was actually June 18th that I was in Vancouver visiting my daughter. And she said, "Hey, Mom, did you know there's a quilt show on?" And I'm like, "Pardon?" She goes, "Yeah, there's some quilt show or something." And I go, "Where is it?" And she says, "Well, it's at the convention center." So I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, do you want me to just drop you off for an hour?" And I go, "No, like I need to go for the day." So it was amazing. It was amazing. I took many, many, many pictures, but I thought I would just, I said to Linda, I think I'll just showcase like 2 different things that were going on there. So I will start it off. Let's see. Okay, so one of the things that they talked about was something called Chromatopia, and it was a fiber art network. So I'll read it. Can everybody see that? Basically what it is it's an exhibition of fiber art created by the Fiber Art Network. It's a cooperation of Western Canadian artists, and they're promoting fiber as an art form. So the theme that was inspired was monochromatic works in Picasso's blue period. And each artist was challenged to explore their own individual theme through creation of 2 different monochromatic artworks. So they were assigned 2 different colors and basically had to put together 2 canvases that were each 12 inches by 12 inches. So I will show you a little bit of, so here are 3 different sets. So what they were, if you can see, some look similar and some look totally different. So the top one at the top gray one to the far left, that was called Crazy About White. And the one below was called Crazy About Black. The one in the middle, the top one was called Low Tide 1. And the bottom one was Low Tide 2. And I believe they were given like paint chips. And that's how they got the colors to work with. The one on the far side is, sorry, I think it's Summit and Sundown. I can't read it off my screen, but, and if you look at the stitching, it was amazing. I don't know if I can, oh, there's the next one. So this is one at the top. It was called Transplant Hearts for both the top and the bottom. So I think you can see the different heart shapes and how it's exploded. The one on the far right was called COVID Conversations. Number 1 on the bottom and number 2 is on the top. So if you can kind of see, it's a picture of a girl lying down talking on her cell phone. You see that? And the one on the bottom, I think it was the grandfather. So he was in a home and it was her talking to her grandfather. So it's kind of neat. And I'll see if I can, I'm going to see if I can zoom in on some of the stitching. Can you see the stitching?
Yes.
So it, and all those little pieces were all just different individual little pieces. I practiced
the-
with
The portraits always amaze me, Tracy. That's, from far away, you don't see
Yeah.
all the little bits and how they come together. You just see the highlights.
Well, and that's kind of why I focused on this type part of the quilt show, because it was really very modern and also very, very unique. And if you've never tried anything like this, I thought it might be, an opportunity. They're only 12 inches by 12 inches. So you're not working with a big, huge canvas. It's something quite small. So let's go to the next one. This is called Horses of a Different Color. So you have the orange on the top and the blue on the bottom. Then the one on the right was called Transition. So transition 1 and transition 2, the blue and the yellow. So you can see how the top one here, I think I can, sorry, got away. If we zoom in here, see how they're all daisies, and the flowers were actually cut out. So what they did was they actually put a flower on, stitched around it, and then cut the fabric out. And that's what gave them the petal look. Yeah, and these were all for sale. So they were selling all these. So see if I can get. They were attached to a 12-inch by 12-inch canvas. Yeah, yeah. They wrapped them around, There's the other one. You can see the leaves. Now that was actually fabric, and she just stitched around the leaf fabric on the outside there. So these were amazing. Like I just was so amazed at how well how creative people are. This was called A Splash of Spring. So on the top you see the sunflowers there, and below I guess some type of leafy plant.
Monstera, maybe?
Sorry?
Monstera?
Sure.
Very, very trendy.
Sure. Leafy green plant. Then the one on the top right is called Alpine Blazing Sunset and Alpine Spring Greens. So you can see you have this, I'm going to zoom in just so you can see the stitching on these. See all the little tiny pieces? Those are like French knots. So if anybody's a real stitcher, all those little tiny pieces were French knots. And the fabric itself, she scrunched up and then sewed. So that gave it that, I don't know, rough appearance. Yeah. And then there it again on the bottom. Really kind of cool, I think. Now this one, I kind of blew it up a little bit because I thought it was really cool. It's called Plants Yellow on the far left and Plants Green. I kind of thought it looked like lettuce on the top left there. So it's just all pieces and she's just sewn them all around and around and around. Whereas the one on the bottom, the Plants Green, you can see it's a little bit more fine-tuned, a little more neat and tidy. Looks like an onion, I think, but then we get to gestures. So the fingers, can you see them on the screen? So you've got the peace sign and then the crossed fingers. And I didn't realize I could zoom in, but I just wanted to show you the stitching on them. See all the little tiny, tiny, tiny little. So that's by hand. Yeah. Little tiny, tiny hand. Yeah. And then there's, so up here, if you look at this one, all the little circles, they're like round little sunburst circles. And then down here, you can see that it's more triangles. So cool, eh? Here we have variation of a seasonal theme. So you have the yellow on the left and the green on the bottom. That can you see? Okay, can you see my mouse?
Yes.
So this is actually just fabric. So it's a patterned fabric. And then these are all satin leaves and they're all stitched. If you want to see something closer, just let me know and I'll zoom in.
Satin stitch, you mean.
Like I'll show you.
I think there's satin stitched fabrics, not fabric.
Yeah.
that are satin stitched.
Can you see? So these, all these little satin stitches going all the way around, right? All the way there. It looks machine. Well, this one, I think part of it's by hand and part of it's on the machine.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the border looks machine.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
that
that
is-
one's,
If it's not machine, that is some very perfect stitching.
well, a lot of them were done by hand, right? Like, so, yeah. And then they're green.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
When you piece together like some of the horses and the people that must be done by hand. Like,
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the horse one was just strips of fabric that they just like, I don't know if they glued them onto the canvas, but it was just like doing, like, yeah, collage work. Yeah.
So if there's stitching, do they then stitch
Yeah.
together once they
Yeah.
start one?
Yeah. And they're all different, right? Like
It's
this
all
one,
together with glue and then thread.
yeah. They're very cool. Hold on. Now this one you have to see zoomed in. So this one's called Prairie Field Summer and Prairie Field Spring. But I was just like, that is all stitched on a machine. So see how many little tiny stitches there are? Like that was crazy. And then this one here, you can see all the little pieces of fabric, that's all by machine as well. Isn't that neat? Yeah. And keep in mind, these are only 12 inches by 12 inches. They're not that big. I think the canvases, they probably got a dollar store or something, but. All right, what's the next one? So this one is called Salmon Tails in the Wild and up here, and this one is Salmon Tails on the Farm. So this one is just basically. So see the fish? It's just actually the fabric. So all she's done is she's just taken a fabric and stitched loosely, stitched around the fish, added some beads right here, and did really, really fine close stitching in the tail, obviously to give it shadowing and dimension. Yeah. And then here, this one as well. It's just, all they did was just stitch over the fabric. And because she's used such a tiny stitch, it almost glistens. The thread that she used. It didn't look like they were. It was just, it was on the fabric. So whether she had hand painted them on or not, or it was just part of a panel or something, but yeah. Okay, this one here, this is called Evenings in San something. I'll zoom in. Oh, San Gimignano. There you go. So yeah, so you can see all the little tiny bubbles. And again, this was all pieced, like she had put it on and then cut out around it and all the little tiny bubbles there. And then you have this one, which is, so that blue one's in the evening and this is in the morning. So cool, eh? This is called Wholeness. So obviously 2 circles. I'm glad I can zoom in because you really got to see. These are all little teeny weeny little French knots. Yeah. And I think there's some beading in there too. Yeah. I told you, like I was there till close. I closed down the quilt show. And then these are all running stitches. So those are by hand, you can see. But isn't it neat how, so the fabric had dimension to it. And then the way she stitched by leaving the blue wide, it looks like water flowing. Yeah. And then there's the orange one. Now these are, so see the little tiny ones? And these are more like straight stitches. Yeah. It looks like it looked like a carpet, to tell you the truth. Yeah. These, yeah. 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 So knots here, straight lines here, and up here, straight lines here, and knots here.
Tracy, what were you saying up to it? We couldn't hear the comments from the crowd.
They were wondering if these were all little French knots and if it was all stitching by hand around here, which it is. And same with the one below, it's reverse. So these are the French knots on the outside and the straight stitching on the inside.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this one is called, they're all 250, I think, or 300. Yeah, 300 was that one. So this is Chromatic Echoes. I really like this one. I thought it was kind of cool. And you've got little tiny, these little blue things at Anne, you hate those. What are they called again? No, they're little tiny, the little flowers that you make on a plastic thing and
Yo-yos.
yo-yos.
I hate them.
I know you do. So those are Anne's yo-yos. So this was all fabric just pieced together. And then all he did was she just stitched it on the machine, obviously in an echo. And I think this is where the echo began, or the circle. This one, again, that's a bead. And she used that to create her echoes from the bead.
Shirley says she loves yo-yos.
Who? Shirley?
Shirley.
Okay, this is, oh my gosh, these are really cool. So this is called Coastal Purple and Coastal Rose. See all these little tiny stitches in here? And this is like satin cording that goes around like stitching. The trees, that's all done by machine with the little circles here. And this was velvet, like a velvet piece of velvet and satin. So it also had a lot of like fiber texture, like you could, not that you want to feel it, but, and then there's the pink. So there's the purple. See how it's the mountains and these are round swirls. And then you get down here and it's waves and there's the trees again. But the velvet really, really added to the mountains and the stones. And yeah, it's like a mini group of 7. Now this one was my favorite. This was called The Pessimist and The Optimist. Whoops, sorry. So I have to zoom in because I just love this. See it? So it says pessimist down the side, purple, sad face. And then, and yeah, and then this one, not for sale. That's what NFS means. So you can see the purple rain coming down. Yes, it was. Yeah. And then this one here, optimist, see optimist around her. Love the glasses. Sandra Thomas, you should do your hair like this.
Yeah, okay.
When I saw this, I thought, oh, Sandra will like that.
I'll think about it.
Okay. And the glasses too. Make sure you get the glasses.
Oh, definitely.
Tracy, for the pessimist, did you say that that was part of the Cherrywood Purple Rain exhibition?
No, it was for the monochromatic, like the
Oh, okay.
chromatic. No, no, it
Oh,
just said it just said not for sale.
Okay,
She was just commenting
Thanks.
on the instant purple rain.
Yeah,
The physical raindrops.
like Prince, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have, there's only a few more of them. Now we have black, how do you say it? Lichen. So black, so that we have black on the top, white on the bottom. So let's zoom in and you can see. Now these are all, this is lace around here. It's like a doily and it's all been, she probably stained it or something. And these are all little tiny, there's beads in there. These are little metal pieces. And yeah, so it's just tons of beadwork and knots, and that's a doily. And then you have the white one here, same.
Said they were metal pieces. Did you stitch them down?
It's hard to, you know what, they're little metal
They're often
pieces.
hollow in the middle.
Yeah. like a
Yeah,
bead.
like a bead.
Yeah.
So you can-
Bugles.
Bugles?
Yes, bugles.
Okay. My bugles, I like come in a box and I stick them on my fingers and I eat them. So, so I don't know about that one. Okay, this one's called Whirly Devilish 1 and Whirling Devilish 2. So very simple, right? But there's cording around the outside. I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually like cording. Yeah, so shades of purple, very simple. It's actually stitched, sorry, I think it's probably like glued down because there's overlapping. You can see the overlapping by about a 1/4 inch. So I think that's just to give it kind of dimension and movement. And then down here is the whirligig. Oh, dervish, sorry, not devil, dervish. And there's again, the pink or red. So yeah, cool. All right. Okay, so now, so that was the end of that part. Yes.
Fan, what did that stand for?
Fiber Arts Network. Yep. So now, so that was one little show area that was very unique. And, you know, obviously there's tons of quilts all over, but that was something I found that was kind of very, very neat. And just something that was new to me. This is called the Worldwide Whisperers. So it was a project that was initiated after a casual conversation between 5 international quilt artists. So they were all part of different groups. One was in Scotland, one was in Ireland, one was the Netherlands, the USA, and Canada. And a leader of each of the countries started things off by using an original photograph, and that's what provided inspiration. So that one photograph was shown to one member, and then that member created a design. And from that design, they passed a photo of their design to the next person. So that's what the show is going to be about. So it's actually similar to, you know, as kids or you play the telephone, right? But it's actually visual. So I thought it was really cool. And I thought it might be something that, you know, might be the group might want to do down the road. Hint, hint, Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you just offer to give leadership to that, Tracy?
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start. So this is was the picture in Scotland. It was the original photograph, and it's called the Island of Mull. So Mr. David Hill, I guess, took a photo, and it was a very old photo. It looked like it was taken in the 70s. So this was the original photo, and this is it was given to the first person in the group, and this is what they created from it. So I just want to let you see this really closely for a minute here. Okay. I think there were about like maybe 5 or 6. There was probably more, but there was only about 5 or 6. I think that maybe they put the pictures up. So here is the first one. So going back, there's the picture. This is the first person who got, I can read, do you want me to read each one like so that you know, understand, or you just want to see the photos? Okay. So this is called Holiday in Mull. So this is what this person did with that photo. Neat, eh? I might have to zoom in just so I can read. Yeah. So that was called Holiday in Mull. This person then, and these were only about the size of my computer, like just, they weren't huge. They were about the size of your laptop screen. And then the next one, so this picture was then given to this person here. And this person called Berkshire Coastlines. And it had to do with something kind of that they were familiar with, like told a bit of a story. You can see the little smiley face right here in the cloud.
Yeah.
So it was something that kind of made them happy. From that photo, I think these things are in the way. Oop, sorry. From this photo, how do I get rid of these? That one? There we go. So from this one, this photo was then given to this person. This person created this photo. And it was called My Adopted Home. There's the horse. So you can see how it's progressing from just a dirt road like on a mountain. And then that person, this photo was given to this person. This person created this called In the Wilds. Okay. Then that person, so this person, the previous photo inspired this one, which was called Sunset Isle. And then it went to this one called Wild Thing. You Make My Heart Sing. And then I really like, then it went to this one, which is called, yeah, you can see kind of, there's a little bit mountains to mountains, right? And then mountains here. And then see all the stitching, there's like all the newsprint, little, it's all scrap. And then this is all stitched by hand. This is called Killer in the Corner. So I guess, yeah. Then we get to the bottom. This person was inspired. Now you get fields from my kitchen window. And there's a little teeny weeny house. Neat, eh? All right, next one. So that person then created this. Yes, it'll come up. There's another photo coming up down the road there or in the presentation. This was called Beyond the Horizon. So there's the tree again and the colors. You know, it's coming back again, kind of went to the sea and now it's coming back again to the earth and the mountains. There's some animals. And then we get Patch Land Bird Watch right here. So you've got these colors here from here. Okay, and then of course a bird again. So I guess animals to animals. And then we get this one. So this is, and the moon coming out in the gloaming. Lots of hand stitching here. We have some X's, we have some cross hatching, we've got some birds up here. We've got the moon. And then this one, look at these tiny little itsy bitsy pieces. See how they're all paper pieced? Right? And it's called Winter in the Glen. So there's a bit of native theme, I think, to this one. And you've got these little tiny deer that are all in the, yeah, I know. Now we get to Ireland. So I just get you to look at this picture. It was Dundalk. So you see all the shells. So if you, these are all shells, mountain, coastal, very, very pretty. I'm gonna go to the next one. Here's the first photo and it's called Home is Where the Heart Is. So again, all these shells. So their home is supposed to be inspiring. So it's something around their home that inspires them, like in Scotland. So obviously shells inspire this person. Then it was this, became this photo because obviously they looked and saw shells. So this inspired this. This is called The Shell. Yeah, I think it's the top of the shell looking down, how you get the, right? If you see this little one right here, kind of inspires it. Then from this photo, we go to here. This is called Doolittle. And all these little stitches are all done on the machine in here. Little bubbles. Yep. It's quite pretty actually. And then we come to this one. So obviously she saw a color wheel, right? Yeah, and balloons, little, and there's little tiny, there's little people right here. I think, no, I think they're, I have no idea. They're just little, they could have just been cut out from maybe fabric or something. And then you got the little people up here and the what do you call those things? Roller coasters? Yeah. Okay, that's called Fun Fair. Yeah. See the four together, how crazy, eh? And then that person, if we go back, see the balloons in this one? So they inspired by the balloons. So this is called Up, Up and Away. And then you've got here the field and there's a little person waving right there. That looks like you, Linda. So we have balloons, and then this person obviously saw them as down to earth, skydiving, right? And looking down and seeing all the different, yeah, and again, they've stitched all little different patterns all in here to give you the effect of, I guess, trees and farm fields, right? And then we go over here to round and round. So this person sees whirligigs, I guess. Again, stitching colors. And from that became a little bit more traditional. You've got your spinning around. So you've got your, you know what those blocks are, pinwheels. Okay. And then we get this one here. So this is called abstract landscape. And then we get knots and crosses. Again, all paper piece, little tiny pieces, all paper piece. And this is all stitching, little tiny stitches in here and all around here. And then obviously X's and O's became this. And these are all just like ribbon right here. And this is called love rippling. So you can see the little ripples all around the outside. And then this one became circle of life. Yeah, yeah, it does look, yeah. Okay, and then there's little, you can't see it, but there's all little tiny fancy stitching running right across here. Okay. And then we get, so I just put this in to show you, this was the actual logo that they had. It's called Worldwide Whispers. In a nutshell, it's a bit like the child's birthday party game where the leader starts by whispering a sentence in the ear of the next participant and then continues around the room, evolving and changing from the original sentence. So there were 5 countries. They had 12 participants. So sorry, you did have you questioned, but it was 12 actually. 13 for Team Canada, because you know we have to. And then 13 quilts of Team Canada, 1 from each of the 10 provinces and 3 territories. So I didn't put all, I just put in like Scotland, what was the other one we did? England, and then I just put in Canada. I didn't do USA because we would have been here all day. So here's Canada's original picture. It was an old barn on a crisp morning in Alberta. So prairie paradise. So that one, that was pretty, I would say pretty close. This is all stitched, like tiny little stitches. And then that's that photo. So that's obviously winter elm. That's from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Inspired this one from New Brunswick, Bert's Corner, sorry, Berta's Corner, New Brunswick, looking in, looking out. So there's a little owl. Yeah, see the Oakleys? Yeah. This was from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. What does the owl see? So isn't that neat? So these are not those things you hate, Anne. These are just circles with stitching. And there's a little owl. Can you see the little owl there? You can't?
Yeah.
I can't zoom in too much, but there's an owl's face there. Yep. So what does the owl see? So if you look here, there was that owl, and then there's the owl. Now we are inspired, or this person was inspired with this one. This is actually raw edged around here. And this was called Shields from North Battleford, Saskatchewan. Excuse me, Saskatchewan. So I'm assuming this is from, I'm not sure of, you can see all the symbols. So it was quite, and I think this was just fabric and they just added their own like paint and thing, but I can't zoom in, but I did get, I tried to take a picture of each card with each photograph or quilt. So if you want, I can actually go in later and find that for you. And then the next one is cool. So here's this, the 3, okay. Then we get this lady. See, she has blue hair too. So that last photo inspired this person to do boats that were out. And I'm sorry, I might be able to click in and see where it's from. She's from BC. This, I think North Vancouver, I think BC. This was called Anchors and Drift, and it was from Nova Scotia, I think. Yeah. So the map along, there's a fishing rods and there's a compass and the boats. Yeah. And her name is Terry. Yeah. Yep. Terry Ask. So she was really neat. I said, can I get your photo of your picture? And that's kind of what we got. So she, from the boats, so remember the very first photo was a barn. Okay, that's what's so cool about it. And then from this photo, we have here fish. So here's boats, and this person thought it reminded them of fish. So it was called Catch a Hold, this one from Newfoundland, right there. Corey Ralph. He, you know what? I can't, yeah. And then of course, now we have this one, True North, Strong and Free, Hay River NT. What's NT? Northern Territories?
Yes.
So, yeah. Yeah. And then from that, we get the bears. Yep. So this was called Yukon Gold from Yukon White Horse. So we get the bears coming back around kind of to the theme of the barn, like the land. And then we get Autumn Tranquility. This is from Quebec. Okay. And then we get Nunavut, Meandering Meladine. And then PEI Sunset. So this was all like, this is a lot of fiber yarn along here. Okay.
That's beautiful.
So that was that. So now we're on to I just have a few more slides. I just thought I would do something a little different. These were, I believe it was called all wired up or lineage or something like that. And basically they were used to use grays and blacks and whites shades. And this is, I just took a couple photos of some that I thought were really unique. This one was called Every Child Matters, and it was all little tiny paper pieced t-shirts and with one little orange one there. And then this one was just different fabrics they sewed together and then did some cording around. They took white fabric lines, and then if you can see the stitching, so they just stitched to mimic the white lines on gray fabric. This person saw the lines as being the telephone poles, wires running, right? Here again, we have a little bit more of a traditional modern block with just straight stitching across. And this one was really cool. This reminded me, this is all stitching. And if you see the word doodle, D-O-O-D-L-E. Zentangles, it probably is, whatever she's got down there, but yeah. So that was kind of, and this is fabric in here. This is just black fabric and she's just stitched around them. So they were not that big. I believe they were about this big, maybe 16 inches by 16, I think. So that was some, and this, oh, sorry. Okay, so this one was called, it was done by the Vancouver Modern Quilt Guild. And it was called Hear My Words. And each maker was asked to piece a block with Hear My Words in a speech bubble with a style they chose, visually representing how they personally felt about having their words heard. Some blocks are big, bold, and loud. Others are small, quiet, and introvert. These are based on each maker's life experiences. The goal to make the viewer contemplate that words, what words it is that they themselves are feeling need to be heard, and also to remind them to take the time to listen the next time someone shares their thoughts. So I just thought this was very important for us to kind of take a look at, especially with what's going on in this world. And these are all the blocks. Oops. Oh, you love that picture. So you can see this is all, they've all stitched differently. This one's long. And that someone here has just stitched it into the fabric and they just attached them all, put them all together. It was just very abstract, I thought. And then the next one was one of my favorite. I think I posted this on our pages saying, you know, have a good day, everybody. Yeah. It was called Joy. And there was lots of photos, but if you look this, oops, sorry guys. If you look here, you can see this is just fabric, but you can see it's a, you know, printed on both sides, batik. Yeah, and look at the teeth, like this, all the stitching around the teeth and the tongue. And in here, the skin, and I just thought it was beautiful. Yeah. Isn't that neat? And then the next one, this was called Ode to the Penny. And I can't remember how many, but it was gazillions. And I put my hand up beside it to show you like my hand basically was bigger than one little square. And here's a close-up, all these little tiny pennies that was shaped the size of a penny. And these are all little tiny, these were about 1.5 inch blocks, I think. So this is a close-up and then this is a little bit wider. I just thought that was crazy. Yeah. And then this one won in second place, human or animal form. And the reason I wanted you to see this is it just was beautiful. See the dog? The eyes were painted. Yeah, it was just amazing, amazing. All done on machine. There's the dog. And there's a little bit more close up there. Like it actually, you wanted to touch it because it felt like satin, like it was just amazing. Painted, her eyes painted with the little dots, yeah. So this is, yeah, it's all stitching, like all the shades of the thread, right? So.
So do you know if the people that won prizes that they're on a website?
Yes. Yep. The Canadian, it's on the Canada, Quilt Canada website. And also there was there's like the Trend Text was the sponsor. So there was the Trend Text winners. They were each given so many colors of a fabric swatches, and then they had to create kind of like the President's Challenge that you're doing, Linda. It was similar to that. So I think, oh, just this one, I thought for all the people who like to do fiber art, this was a big bear on a, and I just did a close up because I wanted you to see the stitching. That's a button.
That looks like it's done with felt.
Yes. Yep. And stitching all along. Yeah. So pretty, eh? Yeah. Is that somebody answer, or is my time up? I could be here all day. This was this one I thought was really fun. It's just the last photo. I thought I would end with this. It was what they were given was they were supposed to be inspired by something recyclable. So this person took coffee mugs, the lids, and these are all lattes, the tops of her lattes.
Oh,
And if you look down below, there's a white one, a yellow one, a black one, and a red one. And we've got red, yellow, white, and black interspersed with the burlap. So it's on this is an actual coffee bean bag. And yeah, and so these are all her lattes. And this one you can see it's really puffed up. So it's Trapunto. Yeah. So I just thought this was really, really a fun one to look. There's some beads there. Whoops. And there you go. That's it. So that's my presentation. I have lots more photos. We can do another presentation another day if you need to. But anyways, I thought you would enjoy that. I was thinking of you all when I was there. And then I came home with COVID. So yeah.
And missed flight, or not missed, but canceled flights and nightmare.
2 days.
getting
Yeah, I was
back
in
home.
2 days in Abbotsford in a hotel room. Yeah. Yeah. So that's it.
Thank
There
you.
were, yes, there were quite a few vendors. There was a lot of long arm vendors there. Harper's were there, Trentex. It was, there was a lot of people doing like displays and just showing different things. So I'd kind of been in 2 quilt shows and done that before. So this was just really neat to go in and see everything. So yes. And guess what? My daughter's in Vancouver. My son's in Nova Scotia. So I will go and I will do a show for you. Exactly. So yeah. So anyways,
That's amazing, Tracy. Thank you so much for putting that together for us.
you're welcome. And I'm sorry it was more than 20 minutes, but
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Angelina, do you want to do another draw while I get the next presentation ready?
Sure, I can do another draw. 297. I know.
You're gonna have to help me.
Tracy, did you stop the sharing on?
Yes, she did.
yeah.
Okay. Great. It's not letting me share my screen.
Pick yourself or whatever that's called. Highlight yourself. While Linda is setting that up, I'll just remind everybody that if you joined us after the pandemic started, we have name tag kits for you. So it has some pieces of fabric from our logo and then a little printed London logo and then a pin from Modern Quilt Hill. So we're supposed to wear our name tag here so we get to know each other. I haven't made mine yet, even though I've been a member for 5 years, but I will do it soon. So if you joined from the pandemic, you never got a name tag kit.
You're my soul sister, Angelina.
Like, I didn't realize that. So long.
I
can't believe
It's low on my list.
Yeah. No, wait.
Yep.
We're still waiting. I'll do one more thing. The President's Challenge. Is everybody aware of the President's Challenge? So it's what's the size of it? I forget. 20 by 20. And this is the color that Linda chose. It's pretty much her favorite color. It's called ginkgo. So if you didn't get a little jewel kit, you can get a jewel kit. And also they will be, well, if you agree to it, they will be displayed at our quilt show next year. And so this would be a label for the back of your quilt. So if any of you don't have that.
Linda, there's
Yeah.
a duplicate on the first screen. Do you want to just delete one of them?
Okay.
Great.
There, can you see it now?
Yep, it's perfect. Thanks, Linda. Okay, hi, everyone. A couple of months ago, when we realized that we had to change things around for our August program, Linda and I were talking, and she mentioned that she'd been experimenting with inset skinny strips. And it sounded very interesting, so I started looking up a little bit of information on it and realized that I had been seeing.
Jan,
Yes?
we're getting a lot of vibration or something. Can you, I don't know, just go back from your microphone a bit or
Okay,
something?
I'll move away. Is that better?
Try again. Say again.
Hello there.
Yeah, try that. We'll see. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I've just changed my computer, so maybe it's doesn't have the good set. Is that okay now?
It's better. Yeah. Yeah, better.
I wonder if I can maybe adjust that speaker a bit then. I thought I.
Sounds like it's vibrating.
It's vibrating a lot?
Sounds like it's vibrating.
Okay.
But Tracy, they weren't doing it. Yeah, I think it's.
Something to do with her.
If you could
Press
back
the-
to my
press
elbow.
the- Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah,
I can.
better.
Okay, I'll leave it at like that then. Okay, so I started doing a little bit of research after Linda and I had this chat and found an awful lot of stuff on skinny strips. So I've put together this introduction to the inset skinny strips, which have been around for about a decade now. And then we're going to follow up with Linda doing a lesson on them. I can't click on it to advance because somebody else has to. Next one. Good. Okay, so the first one is when we were talking, her comments reminded me of this quote that I had from almost a decade ago. Bernadette Meyer is a Dutch quilt maker, I believe, and she's part of the art quilting world also. She tends to be very modern art quilts. And this is probably the earliest example I could find of it. Do you see the little red line? This is a bigger quilt that was a meandering river that went like a very loopy back and forth with this contrast between the pieced blue and then the plain brown background. And that little red strip is about 1/8 of an inch wide. So it's very much an inset strip that she put in. So that's sort of the beginning of this idea. Can you move to the next one? Now, it really took off with Stephanie Rule. She's a member of the Modern Quilt Guild, and she hosted this webinar and then also included a tutorial through the Modern Quilt Guild. She titled it, "How do you feel about a little stripping?" which I think managed to grab people's attention pretty quickly, and then proceeded to show what she meant by stripping, which was putting strips randomly into other pieces of fabric. And really from about 2015 on, you start to see, if you're searching through Modern Quilt Guild, you start to see a number of quilters experimenting with this idea. So this is a really interesting tutorial. It's now about 7 years old. But it's out there. And of course, this slideshow will be on our website. So you'll be able to click on these anytime. You don't need to copy out the address. It'll be there available on our website. So this was the earliest one I could find. And it's exactly what she says. It's how do you randomly insert little strips inside your fabric that you're then going to use in your quilt. Go on to the next slide, please. About 2 years later, Hillary Godwin had another tutorial posted. This one is really an adaptation of Stephanie's, except what she did here, she demonstrated going ahead and creating pieced blocks or pieced quilts and then inserting the strips in. So she called it on the fly, meaning that you created your background with piecing and then decided where you wanted to put your strips. And some of them overlap and some of them don't overlap. It really is a super tutorial. She has a lot of great photos in it. It's very easy to follow. Highly recommend it. So have that one a quick look if you're interested. On to the next slide. This one's different. This is Andrea Zhang Jackson from Nova Scotia. She taught at our guild about, I'm going to guess, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. Very modern. Her style tends to be quite minimalist, clean lines. And she entered a quilt in the quilt challenge, the QuiltCon challenge. And she then posted a tutorial on how she had created it. If you look at this sample, it's a beautiful little composition, because this is sort of the opposite approach to Hillary's approach, in the sense that the strips are the starting place. You create the strips by piecing colors together that appeal to you. And then having pieced that, you then cut strips out of it, and the strips become the whole composition. It's quite an interesting approach. Once again, a very clear tutorial if you want to look at a different way of looking at these. On to the next slide. When I was doing this research, they seem to follow from year to year as people, I mean, the internet has provided quilters with such a wonderful way to communicate back and forth. And one person's idea is a jumping off place for somebody else to try something new. Uta Lank is a member of SAQA, which is the Society of Art Quilters Association. So she's approaching it from the point of view of a quilt artist, not necessarily a modern quilter, and a lot of her quilts are not necessarily modern. She has a lot of different styles, but I think when she was playing with these inserts, she was taking a very modern approach to what she was doing. The one on the left is the earlier one, and the one on the right is about a year later, because she posts these on Instagram, so you can sort of see her progression. When you look at them, when I first look at them, I'm looking at them and saying, okay, which came first? Because you can see where the line is cut and then separates and becomes jagged. So were the vertical lines first and then the curved lines in place? I think that is, in fact, what happens. But it would be kind of interesting to do the curved lines first and then cut them to do straight lines. So it's just an interesting experiment. These ended up being small wall hangings because once she had done the experiment with them, she was happy with them. That's what she ended up with. But on the next slide, you'll see where a few years later, she's been playing with this technique for a while. So, and this is one of her very, very recent ones. And when you look at this, you can see when you keep playing with ideas, you can really take them into interesting ways. This absolutely exquisite work here. She calls it playing with lines. And she puts a number with them. So playing with lines 3, playing with lines 4. I believe this one is playing with lines 8. And you can see how she just keeps experimenting with, well, what if I did this? And what if I carried on with this? There's so many, I think the background piecing had to come first in part, but then not entirely. It's just so very, very interesting. There's so much movement in this. On to the next one. If you want to look at the idea, and that work of Uta Lank might make you think, well, this is all going to be very improvisational and very impromptu, and we don't know where it's going to end when we begin. And then you look at it from a totally different perspective. And this is Jenny Haynes. She did a workshop for us 2 years ago. Her specialty is creating drunkard's path blocks, which of course are very precise piecing, and you get a very geometric look. Her quilts are all about structure and style and geometric perfection, really. And when you think in those terms, they're sort of opposite for the previous one. But once again, here she's using inset strips within her structure for a totally different reason. If you look very, very closely, I think the easiest place to see it is between the sort of fuchsia pink and the gray white, right there in the lower right corner. You can see she's got the background blue inset between the pink and that sort of bluey white, icy white. And it just separates in an absolute precise way the structures. And what she's really doing here is she's highlighting her shapes with this very, very thin inset strip on the curve. So inset strips can be very impromptu, very relaxed, very abstract, or they can be very geometric, very precise, very detailed oriented. So on to the next one. And look at this one. Once again, the amazing thing to me is how many different ways you can use inset skinny strips to create a different effect. So in this quote by Lisa Call, you have a very gentle improv curve going on, not particularly challenging to do. You could do it. I mean, when I say I could do it, I know it's not challenging because I could not do the precision of the Jenny Haynes one previously, but I could do this one. But look at with all those gradations of, most of them are shades of red with just a little bit of mustard yellow and a single piece of gray in there. But how that inset white strip has given so much structure to this and separated the various shades. I mean, when you first look at it, you don't stop to realize just how many different shades of red and fuchsia that are in here, but those white strips highlighted. And I sort of lost myself in this picture when I first looked at it online, and I thought, oh, look, there's how she constructed. Oh, no, that's not how she constructed. Now she did something different here. And it's fascinating to me to see how she got these places. It absolutely speaks to me, this particular one particularly. On to the next one. Now, having looked at all of these, Linda and I were emailing back and forth, and she sent me an email and she said, you got to look at Irene Roderick. She's got a new book coming out and she does amazing inset skinny strips. So I went on to her website and looked into her portfolio. She is a master of inserting the skinny strips, which I immediately emailed back to Linda about, and she said, okay, I'm going to talk to Heather and see if we can get the book. I believe the book is on order and we're getting it into our guild. Now, this is one quilt where she's got some inserts. Look at the next two. The one next slide has two quilts on it. These are both Irene's. Look at what you can do with inset skinny strips when it is basically the whole composition is just the inset strips. The one on the left is all the same piece of fabric. It's all red. It's a sort of a medium red. And look at what she's done with it. There's so much going on there. The one on the right, she has several colors here, all solids. I looked really, really closely and I had a really good picture to start with. And no, there were no prints in that at all, but she's got so much going on. And there are, I think, about 6 places here where there's a pieced background. The rest of it is all inset strips into the white background. It's just absolutely blow your mind. Incredible. It's a great book to have her. So when you get a chance, check out the book and see just how amazing her things are. So on to the next one, please, Linda. No, so now we're going to end up with Linda's quilts. So while she's been experimenting, she's made these 3 samples. She's looked at all of a wide variety of ways of taking those skinny strips and adding them for a pop of color, a pop of line, part of the composition, part of the movement. So this has all been as an introduction. So I'm going to sign off now and turn it over to Linda, who's going to show you what happens with skinny strips.
Thanks, Jan. And I will, I'm just going to spotlight for just a second. So, oh, is it backwards? Or can you read it?
Good.
Can you read the title?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
clear,
it's good,
Linda.
It's good.
Okay, great. So this is Irene's book, and I absolutely love every bit of this book. So that's one of the where I got some of my working samples for today. And if I go to slideshow is where it is. I can never find that. All right. Oh, I don't want to do that. We did that. Okay, so I'm doing skinny strips. And this is a picture of one of my inspirations that for starting this exploration in detail is the mini that I received through the Modern Quilt Guild swap from the partner that I created for. She's in her name's Paola or Paola, and she is in Italy. She's an individual member. She's got a group of individual members that are working together on some collaborations, but this is what she created from me. And aside from the exquisite quilting, how she pieced all these little bits together just absolutely amazed me. It was also her first time working with any text. So there's some text in the printing where she's highlighted, this says rock star. So that was, I absolutely love this piece. And she had posted some on Instagram, some of her work as she was working on this piece. So you can see how some of the bits get put together and some of the detail on the quilting. The other inspiration was our in-guild swap, where our member Laurie Paquin created this magnificent piece for me. And there are a lot of little tiny strips in this one as well. So she was way ahead of me on playing with strips. I just love this piece. And so I had started playing with the inset strips using Andrea Sang Jackson's method, and I've got the tutorial listed here. And basically you're creating strip sets and you're using a contrast solid, and you're also using some glue, using a washable glue. It could, you can use whatever is your favorite washable glue. There's a number of products out there that will work. So can you see my mouse? So she's created strip sets and she's inserting them into a solid piece of fabric. So the first bit that you figure out where you're going to insert, and then you press it and fold it, and you use a basting stitch. So mine is set at 5mm stitch length. And I have found that I need a little bit more than the 1/4 inch traditional seam allowance for this. So I use about a 3/8 to a 1/2 inch seam. So you press it, fold it, and then baste where you're going to do the insert. And then the next step is to slice off the fold from that now stitched seam. So I did add some marker on there so you could see where it had been basted. Press the seam open. And then you're going to use a glue stick. So if I can go back. So I put glue on, not on the seam itself, but on the seam allowances, just little dabs of glue all down the seam allowances. You put the strip that you're using face down on top of those seam allowances. And I used 1-inch strips here. And then you press that, after you make sure it's centered, you press it to set that glue, and that holds it while you're doing the next steps. And now you need to change your stitch length back to your favorite stitch length. And my camera, interestingly enough, it was, you can't tell when you're looking at it just in regular light, but the LEDs actually flip between the 2 and whatever the other number is. So I'm actually using a 2.2 stitch, but you can only see, but you do have to switch between the basting stitch and your regular stitch length. Because now you're going to go in and, so here you can see the contrasting stitch, sorry, the contrasting strip is behind here, and this is the fold. So I'm stitching as close to that fold as you can get. Now, Andrea did suggest to use your zipper foot for this, but I found my regular 1/4 inch foot also works fine. So you might want to play with that a bit, but you want to stitch very close to your basting line. Then you turn the piece over and you repeat the seam on the other side. Again, trying to get very close to that basted stitch, sorry, basted seam line. You want to try and make sure that you keep a really good amount of fabric in the seam allowance, so that it doesn't fray or come undone. And then you press the piece, and you can see I got a little bit wonky here and wonky seams, but they happily press flat. So it's fairly straightforward piecing or pressing. And then you, so I stitched 2 samples, one with the dark fabric as the background and one with the dark fabric as the inset strip. And you can see here on this light fabric how you see the shadowing of the seam from where it peeks out from the seam allowance of that of the other seam. So depending on the fabric that you've got, you may want to do some trimming to make sure that you don't get those shadows. And this is where I used the technique that we learned in Krista Hannaberry's workshop from a couple of years ago. Krista's from Poppy Print, and we had a fabulous speed date with improv workshop with her. And just be very careful with this, because you are cutting and you're sort of cutting towards your hand. But the difference here is that you're cutting on an angle, and you hold the ruler so that it's just at the edge of the seam that you're trimming. And with the rotary cutter at an angle, it actually trims that bottom layer a little bit closer to the seam than the top one. So it's like very fine grading of your seam allowance, and it works really well. So at the top one here, you can't see any of the dark blue shadowing here. And this was another sample that I left the dark blue, and I didn't trim that. So it makes a big difference on, especially for light fabrics, so that you don't get that shadowing showing up. And then you remove the basting stitches of that seam. Now, Andrea suggests using the seam ripper from the front, and that works quite well. You can just slip your seam ripper with a little red ball underneath the seam and run it carefully up the seam. I found that it's just as easy to just from the back pull those basting stitches, because they are quite big. So you could just, depending on how long your seam is, you can just pull out that basting stitch, and then you don't get all the little itty bitty threads. So once you've got the basting removed, you can pull the seams to release the glue, and or to release the seams, and you can press them open. And then you can add other elements. In this case, I've added another skinny strip in a different direction. So you can see the front on the right-hand side and you can see the back on the left-hand side. And in this sample, I was using a strip set. So what I was wanting to play with here was the placement of the yellow. So I created a strip set of the background, the contrast, and the background. So as you could move the 1-inch strip that you cut from that strip set up or down so that you get a different amount of yellow showing through in different areas. So you can see that the one in the middle is a little bit higher up from the top. The one on the right doesn't have quite so much up at the top. And this also works for the curved seams. So in this, I'm not piecing a curved, the cut is, sorry, not the cut, the fold is, I sewed a curve into the strip. The inset strip that I used is not curved, it's just pieced. Sorry, it's just straight. My words aren't working terribly well today, sorry. It's just straight. You don't need any for the inset piece to be curved at all. It's just a straight piece. It's small, so it bends quite well. So I liked playing with the curve, and you can make them very skinny or you can make them a little bit fatter. You have lots of variation and lots of interest that way. And for the second method that I did some samples up for this is using Irene Roderick's Dancing with the Wall improv quilting process from her book. I got so excited going through this book. I absolutely love her process and how she puts the elements together. So the first sample that I'm doing here is using log cabins. And this is, there are quite a few samples of this in the Giraffe Rock mini that I received from Paola. So you're taking the starting block, and it doesn't have to be square. It can be a rectangular-ish, parallelogram-ish, whatever shape you'd like. And you're taking another strip of high contrast that's starting with 3/4 of an inch wide. So it's a little bit narrower than the previous one. And just sewing it on with a regular seam to the one side. And after you've sewn that on, you do trim it down to 3/8 of an inch. And then you turn it around and sew the next piece on and trim that. And you go all the way around your log cabin, or all the way around your log. So the picture on the right shows you the front and back, and those seams have been trimmed to 3/8 of an inch. And now if you add wider blocks, you get those contrasting strips that are very skinny and in the middle. And I'm saying that I intentionally made that one part very skinny and made it disappear. I am saying that it would, my sewing skill is not necessarily terribly precise, and it works okay for this. So this shows you the front and back, adding the blue strips, the dark blue strips, to those skinny strips, and you get this beautiful, very tiny contrast in the middle of your log cabin. And if you do another round, it gets even more interesting, and you can add other little strips here and there as you go. I also played with triangles. one of the things you have to do with triangles when you're piecing them in this log cabin version or process is make sure that you leave lots and lots of overage, because this angle that you're going to sew, you want all of that angle to be included in the piece. So I just take my ruler and make sure that I've left enough of that next row that I'm sewing on, so that I'm going to have a nice straight line of fully covered fabric, so that I get a full piece for the next triangle. I also chain piece wherever I can. So in this case, I've made sure that there's enough room between the piece on the left and the piece on the right to have both pieces have a nice straight line that has been added on. And this is so I made 3 triangles, and so you can see the 2 fronts and the 1 back. And now how to use some of these. So the skinny strips that I had showed you for the block of the month in July, the Rising Star, I did use this same method for one of the pieces of fabric. So in using the Magic 8 method to make 8 half square triangles at a time, I selected one of the pieces of fabric to do some inset strips. Now I made sure I had lots of extra room, so I added an 1.5 inches or so to that starting block, so that after I did my inserts, I would still have a piece big enough so that it covered the entire contrasting block to make the half square triangles. And the process is still the same. You mark the diagonals on your on one side of the on one of the fabrics, pin them together, sew a 1/4 inch from in both directions on each diagonal, cut them apart, and trim them. So in this picture, you can see on the left-hand side, I've got the big square and I've got the little square, and cut them apart on the right-hand side. They do look quite wonky here, but that's okay, because all of the triangles do get cut down when I'm doing my Magic 8 half square triangles. I do trim them to be the perfect size to whatever size that I need for that particular project. And that trims away all this wonkiness that's on those half square triangles. And this was the resulting Rising Stars. So I had the insets on all of these half square triangles, on the big ones and on the little ones. And even this morning, I was scrolling through Instagram, I found this fun example of skinny strips in a variety of this is from one post, but she was playing with a block of the month that she was working with, and she created all these really interesting shapes with a lot of skinny strips. This is a later post from Paola, an example of some of the later work that she's using for the skinny strips. And this, again, she shows the front and the back, which is really helpful. And I do love the different colors that she's used, both in the strips and in the solids. And this is another of Paola's work. This one's actually on tour. I believe it was at QuiltCon. It was just recently at the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show. She called this one Sea Lights. And so that's all of the information that I have on the skinny strips. Are there questions?
Deb, would we be able to see your PowerPoint separate from the Zoom
Yes.
recording?
Yes, so after the meeting, we'll get all of the, we'll get Tracy's, and we'll get Jan's, and we'll get mine all posted to the website. And they'll all be under the resources tab for the 2022 patterns and notes area. So you'll be able to see these directly. So all of the links will be in there as well. All right. So I'm going to go to show and share. We'll do the virtual ones first. I'm not sure if Lisa's in the room. Is Lisa in the room? Lisa wasn't sure if she was going to be able to make the meeting or not. So she did send these to me. So this is she's doing a string quilt, using up her stash. And she says, no matter how many strings I use up, I always seem to have more when I'm done than when I started. The magic of scraps.
Wow.
This next one is from Lisa as well. And I have seen disappearing 9 patches, but I hadn't seen disappearing pinwheels before. This is so cool. And I have some from Caitlin as well. She shared, she made this great scrap quilt pattern by Andrea Sims.
Yeah.
It's a lap size.
Here, Linda.
Oh, Caitlin's here.
Yep.
Lisa was too, but I think she had to leave.
Oh, okay.
This is my first scrappy quilt that I embraced scrappy and a scrap stack. It's Andrea Sim did a quilt one that was supposed to be for the year. And you do a little bit each, but I kind of, so that's, I'm done. So I made that. And then this one is the blanket statement. I'm not sure what order you want in my book, but here's
Oh,
yours.
yep, she's got it up.
So this is Northcott Fabrics, Michael Ann at Stash. I tried the corners, but I've learned that when you're hanging it, if you don't want the hook to show, you gotta kind of tack it a little bit here. So that was that. And then from the library, I did this pillow. So the book's pillow pop is at the back there. I changed it a little bit. These were all like strips of fabric. So I just did kind of halves. I think it worked out really well. So, and 2 other things I wanted to mention you may already know about, but Shannon Fraser, who did a workshop here, she's doing a 30-day improv thing in the month of August that I'm doing, if you want to check that out. And then there's another shop, online shop called String and Story. And she's starting on this Monday. Quilt planning, like how to know where to plan doing like machine quilting. And it's like virtual, she's a US shop. But she's doing it on YouTube at 11 a.m. I think each day. And each day has a different theme. So I'm gonna check that out this week. So
Shannon did that 30-day thing last year as well.
yeah.
I haven't finished that. 30-day, 365, 365.
So we'll go to the in real life show and share for anyone else that has projects they brought to share.
We have a couple. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Megan, so I'm new to this, to the guild.
But I have been quilting with the Oxford Quilt Guild for a little while. We had Happy Dowdy. And so this comes from one of her books, and it's just sort of been modified from that.
Beautiful.
And the back kind of mimics that as well.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
And then I had 12.5-inch square blocks that I cut for a class that I was supposed to do before COVID. And then I was like, what am I going to do with those? So as I was heading into a little bit more modern. It's
I
actually,
love that.
it goes vertical because it's barcode. It's kind of like barcode.
Ah,
Wow. No.
that's so fun.
Yeah.
And it's one of my first forays into actually machine quilting it myself, so.
Nice.
Someone wants to keep. I don't know, yeah. Okay.
Anybody else?
I'm Mary Beeman, and this is not a quilt, but this is something I just did recently. It's a t-shirt, and what I did was I put leaves on it and then sprayed it with bleach and water. It's a combination. I think it's something like 50-50. And you have to then, once you've done that, you have to, once it starts churning, you can see the brown come through. You dip it in something. Is it water? And then, yeah, I think you do it in water and then vinegar and water and then water. But don't put it right away into the vinegar because you can have a reaction between the bleach and and I did the front with cardboard first to make sure it didn't go to the back, and then like the day later I did the back with
Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Oh, and the other thing with that is you want to make sure if you're doing it on fabric, test your fabric because it might not work. Now, I've always had success with black fabric doing it, but it might not work for you. So test it first. Yeah, you're supposed to do cottons, but I've had people that I've demoed it and it didn't work. So if you have a little Q-tip, test it and then like on your fabric or whatever. It's fun.
Cool. Anybody else share? I think that's all, Linda.
I want to have some show and share for us. No? Okay, Angelina, do you have more door prizes?
Sure. 289. And 298. I know we have your movie, so. 286. You, Linda?
Okay, thank you. So that's all I had. If there, are there any questions? Comments? I guess one of the things that I didn't put on the agenda, we are doing a trunk show for the Kincardine Sunset Quilters Guild on October 12th. So if anyone has a modern quilt that they're willing to lend me so that I can take it for this trunk show, that would be wonderful. Just send me a note and letting me know that you have a quilt, and we'll figure out a way to get that to me and then get it back to you after the trunk show. So I've been actually one of the ladies that one of the co-presidents from that guild. She's actually joined our guild and is enjoying it. And so we're happy to have that connection. She's been talking to her members who are really excited to see a trunk show from a modern guild. So I'm really looking forward to providing that quilt show for them. So if anybody has modern quilts that they are, I'm happy to have me show at this trunk show. That would be wonderful to be able to do that. And that's all I have for today. I want to give huge thanks out to our executive team that were able to step in and do the managing the communications so that we could continue this hybrid experience and provide both in person and the Zoom meeting for everybody. Thanks again so much. And that's all I have. The Zoom recording will be on our YouTube channel later today. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay.
Thank
I'm going to end the meeting for the remote people now. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.